Ladies and gentlemen, for part two, would you please join me once again to welcome back Martin Rich, Future Fit Business founder and executive director. Here we go.
Thank you. Wow, some of you came back. Hey, awesome, thank you. That makes me feel good. I've come a long way, so to speak to an empty hall would be bad. All right, so can we click forward here? We get the slides up again. All right, part two. Now we get into the tools. How do you do all of this? So we talked before the break about this concept of shared value moving to system value. How do we think about business in the context of a flourishing business able to achieve the SDGs, living within society that is flourishing because it is living on a planet that is flourishing? Rather than these concepts of externalizing all of our costs, all of our impacts, purely for the benefit of dollar and GDP. Okay, so how do we get to a point of system value operations? I'll sign them for you afterwards, okay? Yeah. So now today, most people think in these terms. Most C-suite, most chief execs will have seen these 5 forces. You familiar with these perhaps? They're called Porter's 5 forces. If any of you have done a business school study or an MBA, you will have done Porter's 5 forces. And these are the things that drive your products and services today. These are the threats and opportunities that exist to you, whatever business you're in. And these have been around since, I think, the 70s. They're great. They're still valid today. But they were not originally thought of in this context, because the planet and societal boundaries hadn't really been recognized as an issue. So if we are to look at these 5 forces in the context of system value, we actually need to add 3 more forces into this picture: the environmental context, the technological, and the societal. Let's drill into each of those for a minute. What do we mean by that? Well, the environmental context, we know the planet is telling us things are changing. Climate change, runaway climate change, biodiversity loss, an incredibly important issue that's actually coming up the radar screen very, very quickly. Plastics in the ocean, as we've already spoken about a lot today. A whole heap of other stuff. But these are existential risks. If the planet gets anywhere close to 3 degrees warming, society as we know it will end. It will end. Okay, if anybody tries to tell you that we can get to 4, 5, 6 degrees of warming, laugh at them. It will not happen. Speak to an environmental scientist who really understands the problem. Society will collapse before we get anywhere close to 3 degrees. That's it. Game over. We will be living in a Mad Max type world. That is not scaremongering. That's reality. These are big, big, big problems. That's going to impact your business. And the change, as we move in that direction, is going to impact your business. Even if you don't believe in climate change and you don't believe it's man-made, it's going to impact your business because these changes are happening. So are social changes. Economic migration. Somebody earlier was speaking about refugee movement and immigration. It's becoming a huge issue. It's impacting societies now on a daily basis. Automation and the impact that that has on jobs. The disillusioned middle classes. Look at all of the political shenanigans that are going on around the world at the moment. The way that so many people are feeling left behind. And that is leading us to more and more extreme political individuals or movements. It's what gave us a certain gentleman I won't name in the US. It's what gave us a certain thing in the UK called Brexit, which you might have heard of. It's causing us a complete nightmare in the UK. Because people are feeling left behind. Even people who actually, on a global standard, have a lot, are feeling left behind. That is going to impact your business. And the rate of change of technology is hugely going to impact your business. Artificial intelligence, digital agriculture. It's a great one. If you don't know what that is, just go and look it up. It's great fun. Unmanned vehicles, unmanned aircraft, gene editing, the Internet of Things, all of this stuff is going to impact your business, open channels for competition that you never, ever dreamed of. One of the organizations we work with, Novo Nordisk, they produce half of the world's insulin. One of their biggest threats going forward isn't another drug manufacturer, it's Apple. Because Apple have now created a way of an Apple Watch monitoring your bloodstream, your sugar levels, from a watch that you're wearing. So a technology company is now a great business threat to an insulin manufacturer. Who would have guessed? Change is going to come at you rapidly from all directions if you are not prepared and you're not thinking in this type of way. So we need to start thinking in this systems lens about how do we build new businesses that are regenerative for the planet, regenerative for society, and therefore resilient in creating a flourishing, future-fit society. It's an organization in Canada at the business school on the West Coast called the Embedding Project, and they asked now over 400 C-suite and non-exec directors, did this make sense? This type of thinking. And the response came back. It manages disruption to our business. It's a risk mitigation tool. It enhances society's acceptance of our success. As brand people, that one, if nothing else, should have grabbed your attention. And it also helps, they said, to set the right limits to our societal commitments. What are the bounds of what we are and are not responsible for? How do we draw those lines? How do we understand them? All of this type of thinking helps move you in that direction. And to ask a new set of questions about your business. What societal needs do we address? What is the purpose of our business? And how do we do it? How do we do it in a way that reinforces the positive framings and reduces the negative impacts of what we're doing? What is the unique skills and knowledge that we possess that enable us to deliver this purpose to society? And how do we leverage that in the face of all of these changes to build a better business in pursuit of a flourishing future, in pursuit of the SDGs, in whatever comes after the SDGs in 2030? How do we position ourselves as a business that we are reinforcing and benefiting society and the planet and flourish because of that, not in spite of that? That is the challenge that we are sending out to all of you today. That is the Future Fit Challenge. How do you do that? What does that mean in Malaysia to do that? So what does a future fit society look like? Here are our 7 overarching categories. You can all read them, I'm not going to repeat them, but it's about no pollution, no waste, energy being renewable, people having the opportunity to live flourishing lives. This is all built on the system science framework. You can download the document from our website. You can read all about this. I'm not going to go into the details. But underlying those 7 characteristics is an 8th, which is about social norms, global governance, and economic growth. There's that word again, driving the pursuit of future fitness. In other words, global economic growth, not driving GDP pursuit, but the pursuit of these other 7 overarching goals. Now that's great, and hopefully again, nobody sat in this room is looking at any of those and going, oh, I don't like the look of those. That kind of makes sense. I hope it does. But what does it mean for you then practically as a business? You said, Martin, you were going to give us a framework. Okay, so let's think about the direct and the indirect impact of your business, and let's think about the negative and the positive impacts that you can have. To start with, let's think about this bottom left-hand corner. The direct negative impacts of any business. If we are to have a future-fit, flourishing society, every business must eliminate its own negative impacts. We all have a role to play, and we all have to eventually eliminate those negative impacts by avoiding anything that undermines the well-being of others or degrades the environment. What that led us to over the 6 years of developing the benchmark is this series of 23 break-even goals. If you want to know how you stop damaging the planet and society, that is your answer right there. 23 things is everything and all that you need to do. Those are written in very clear language. I apologize, it's all in English. We will be working on getting translated versions in time. Thankfully, you all speak great English. Thank you. Energy is from renewable sources. All employees are paid at least a living wage. The right tax is paid at the right place in the right time, one of our less popular of the 23 goals. We provide detailed guidance behind each of these goals as to what it really means and how do you do it. More importantly, how do you measure your progress on a 0 to 100% scale? 100% is future fit on that goal. And only when you're 100% across all of those goals can you say you are truly future fit. Okay? And the guidance helps you measure where are you today on that 0 to 100% scale. Why? Because now you know what the destination looks like. You can measure where you are today, and now you know what the gap is. So now you know what it is you have to start doing to close that gap. Now, I'm afraid what I don't do is tell you how to close that gap, and there's a very good reason for that, which is you know your business better than I do. We're training an army of consultants around the world to help people on this journey. I very much hope that Invictus and May are going to be our first partners here to be able to help all of you on that journey. But what we can give you is a globally consistent framework that enables any company anywhere to measure where is it today versus where does it need to be and start to set the short, medium, and long-term priorities about how it makes that journey. The short-term goals that you could close tomorrow or next week if you tried. The medium-term goals that will take a bit of time and effort, but actually with the right management support and the right investment you could make. And also the goals that you look at today and you think, I have got no idea how I'm going to close that gap. It might not even be possible with your current product suite. Okay? What does it mean over the next 10, 15, 20 years to change that and transform the way your business operates? How do you become a business that could be truly future fit and know that you are no longer damaging the planet or society by your products and your services, and that actually you're reinforcing and rebuilding? That is a vision I hope that is worth getting everybody on board with. If we all do this, and we all do this around the world, we can achieve a flourishing future. We can achieve the SDGs. We can get where we need to go. I can only show you and point you in the right direction. I can't force you to do it. But I hope you're beginning to see in this tool a framing to help you on that journey. Now let's talk about some positive stuff, right? Because your companies are all great. You do brilliant stuff. You want to tell the world about the cool things you're doing, the purpose, why you exist. So the other 3 squares in our little 2x2 here talk about that. What can you do to help others reduce their negative impact? What can you do to go beyond positive yourself? How can you, for example, not only eliminate your use of non-renewable energy, but actually create more renewable energy than you need and give it to others, sell it to others to use, create positive impact? And then the top right-hand corner, how do you accelerate the positive impact of others? In other words, how do you live out your purpose as an organization? We have another set of categories, what we call our positive pursuits. There are 24 of these. That really annoys me. There are 23 break-even goals and 24 positive pursuits. But these are not actions. These are categories that encompass what you can do to help others accelerate their purpose so that we can talk consistently to external stakeholders, investors, and others about the purpose that we are bringing through our business models. So in other words, if we can start to see the world in this lens, we start to decouple our success from negative impact, and we recouple and increase the opportunities to the positive impact that we are creating. What this framing enables you to do is to go to your CFO and CEO and say, what would it mean to deliver our purpose in a way that was only reinforcing planetary and social boundaries, was hitting the orange squares? And what would it mean to do that in a way that we were not causing any harm? We'd eliminated our negative impacts. This is the workshop that we do with C-suites. It's so much fun. Just imagine sitting down with your C-suite and saying, okay, forget any restrictions and boundaries for a minute. How would we deliver our products and services in a way that only reinforced and had no negative impacts? What would that look like? What would we need to achieve? What technology would we need? How would we do things differently? Wouldn't that just be an incredible journey to go on? And if we could measure where are we today using our framework, you've just created a journey because you know where you are today. You're looking forward to what your company could be. Now all you need to do is plot the route between the two. Now that journey will take time. You're not going to do it tomorrow. It's a 10, 15, 20-year journey. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we're all moving in the right direction. That we're all trying to achieve that same end goal, whatever that means for your business. That you understand the trade-offs of the decisions that you're making on a day-by-day basis to get to that end point. But you're clear about the destination on that journey. That is a very different conversation with the CFO from, can I have $10,000 to replace the light bulbs? Right? This is how do we invest in the future of our business so that we flourish, that planet and society flourish with us. That is what the Future Fit journey is all about. You still with me? Excellent. Good. Haven't lost you. Good. So here's some of the companies that we're working with, just to give you an idea. We're beginning to build communities around the world, so we're working with a number of the biggest companies in the world to do this. We're also working right down through SMEs into micro enterprises. This framework is consistent for all businesses of any size and shape. The challenges that you face and your ability to address those will change depending on your size, but the framework itself does not. The system science doesn't change. The interpretation of it doesn't change. Anybody in this room can pick this framework up and start to use it. These are some of the guys who are helping us to develop it around the world. We're also working with investors. Again, we heard earlier from Eric about how investors are taking this stuff more and more seriously. We are part of trying to create a consistent framing of data and information so that we can actually compare and contrast, know who is moving in the right direction, put our money to work with them, encourage them to move in the right direction, and, if needs be, ultimately take money away from those who are refusing to move in that direction. We're now looking to grow a global community. We now have communities outside of the UK, where I'm based, where Future Fit Foundation is based. But we're growing in Canada. We have a community. We have one in Denmark. We have one now in Australia and New Zealand. I'm actually spending 2 weeks in the ASEAN region. I really, really hope off the back of spending a few days here that we're going to start building a first community in this region right here. I've heard so much good stuff over the last 36 hours that I've been here. I really, really, really hope that you guys will help us to form a presence here, that you will be part of the global community. Through May and Gerald and the Invictus Group, we're going to start having a base here. We're going to start growing that community, I hope. So talk to them about how you can start going on this journey. How can you start building a future-fit Malaysia? How can you lead in this region, encourage other businesses and other countries to start doing the same, and connect in with all of the other places around the world we're now working? We're a not-for-profit, we're a charity in the UK, so I am not doing this for any financial gain. I'm not trying to sell you this product. I'm trying to sell you the concept and the idea. You can go to our website, futurefitbusiness.org, and you can download all of the documents behind this right now for free. You don't even have to give me your email. So I'm going to just leave you before, hopefully you've got some questions. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Leadership is not about being in the lead. It's about heading for the right destination and lighting the way for others to follow. My hope is that through this, you've got a clearer idea of what the right destination might look for, that you want to head for it, and importantly, you want to light the way for everybody else to come with you. That's what we're trying to do, and I sincerely hope that you will be joining us on the journey. Thank you very much.
Yes, Martin, I think we do have questions. Can we put up the questions? Yes.
Come on. Oh, here we go.
Here they are. Go ahead.
Right, okay. Oh, the second one is easier. Okay, I'll come back to the first one. I'll just start thinking about it. So can you give an example which company has made good progress based on the Future Fit framework and what's their score? So the first integrated report built around Future Fit from a listed company comes out of New Zealand. It's a company called THL Tourism Holdings Limited. If you go to, I think it's thlsustainability.com, I think, you will be able to see the world's first listed company integrated report, where they talk about their Future Fit plans and progress. Now, they haven't done a full scoring yet. The first company to do a full scoring hopefully is going to publish their results in November, so about a month's time now. That's Novo Nordisk, the Danish pharmaceutical, one of the SB community, one of our development council. They've done a full scoring. For 2 years, they've had the data assured by Grant Thornton, the audit company, and that data will be, assuming that they get final sign-off from their disclosure committee, they will be publishing those results on, I think it's November 20th, something like that. So unfortunately, because that is embargoed information, I can't tell you what the scores are. So you'll have to wait until November, but that will be the first set of results coming out, which obviously is a very, very exciting moment for us. How are you going to convince people that climate change is real, since political advocacy of SDG is equally, if not more important? I'm not going to, is the honest answer. I haven't got time to try and convince people who don't believe in climate change or that it's real, because there are enough people who get it, and quite frankly, you only need, as I've said already, you only need to look out the window and you can see how the climate is changing, how the ice masses and the North and South Poles are melting, how weather patterns are changing dramatically, how storms and cyclones are getting more severe, rain is getting less frequent or far more frequent, floods, all the rest of it. You know, it's, quite frankly, I think to not believe that climate change is real, you've got to be walking around with your eyes closed. Now, whether or not you believe it's man-made, I clearly think it is, but I don't actually, again, care whether or not you think it's real or not. I care that you are responding to the fact that it is happening. And as I've said through the system diagrams, this is going to impact your business. So even if you don't want to believe that it's real or man-made, these changes are happening. They're going to hit your supply chain. They're going to hit your customers. They're going to hit your distribution routes. They are going to have an impact, and you need to be ready for that, irrespective of whether you believe it's man-made or not. There we go. Do I get away? Do I escape with only 2 questions?
I think so. Do we have any more? All right.
No. Well, I'm around for that. I'll be around the rest of today and all tomorrow, so if people want to come and find me, I'll
All
be
right.
here.
Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Martin Rich, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we have a speaker from Monash, Malaysia School of Business. She's the PRME ambassador, and she's going to discuss with us about the role of universities in sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Priya Sharma.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's been an interesting afternoon of various presentations of sustainable development in businesses. But hailing from an academic background, I myself and many like me can't help but identify a gap between businesses and the future generation of business leaders. A higher educational institution, including universities, which act as hubs for innovation and critical thinking, nurturing each generation of business leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, educators, researchers, scientists, and consumers, play an extremely important role in raising awareness and fostering the understanding of SDGs and their interconnectedness with the business world. Monash, Malaysia School of Business is internationally accredited with over 2,500 students. We are also a member of PRIME. Raymond, you were asking me what PRIME is. PRIME is the Principles of Responsible Management Education. It is a United Nations initiative founded in 2007. It is a platform of over 650 business schools, and PRIME advocates that schools of business and management-related higher educational institutions play an extremely important role in shaping the mindset and the skills for future business leaders, and are important drivers for corporate sustainability, focusing on the 17 SDGs. Monash Malaysia became a member in 2017, but since then, it has stirred its direction, vision, and mission to create meaningful impact in the way businesses are conducted in Asia through high-quality research, educational excellence, and extensive engagement with industry and the community through the engagement of the 17 SDGs. Today, I would like to share with you how higher education, particularly at Monash, sits at the heart of sustainability. Now, when we embarked on this journey, there were several questions that we asked. Firstly, does the curriculum address topics of social, environmental, and economic perspectives? Do students ask real-life questions and learn through projects, case studies, and study trips? Are teaching methods effective in integrating the Sustainable Development Goals? To identify gaps and strengths, the first thing we did was to map the student learning outcomes of programs and units against the SDGs. Then we did this for 2 of our programs, which is the Bachelor of Business degree and the Master's in International Business. We then used the results to guide our progress. We used it to develop new units around ethics and sustainability in the business environment. We used it to then develop and modify the existing units through its content and assessments. In 2017, we started the PRIME Seminar Series. Now, this is a platform for the school's academics to share, discuss, and raise awareness of innovative methods of incorporating the SDGs into the curriculum, into assessments, and into bringing it into the classroom through active learning and industry participation. To expose them to challenges in the real business world, The school takes undergraduate and postgraduate students on study trips to organizations and institutions which practice sustainable management practices to address social, economic, and environmental issues. What you see here is a cohort of undergraduate students at Dialogue in the Dark. Now, they were guided by blind people into specifically constricted dark rooms where scent, sound, temperature, texture, and wind was used to convey characteristics of the everyday life. And the reversal of roles saw the blind guides provide a sense of security to the students. This experience raises empathy and promotes a sense of social inclusion to some of our marginalized people. In terms of research, the question that the school then asked was, what is the emphasis on the kinds of research being done? Is it used to find solutions to SDG-related issues like economic inequality, climate change, environmental issues? Now, publication is an important part of the school's platform. Now, when we looked and we mapped our publications across the SDGs between 2014 and 2018, in peer-reviewed journal, we found that the most work was being done around SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth. This, again, paves the way for future research in the school. Collaborative research with industry, community, and the government is a central pillar to the school's approach to sustainable development. Internal and external grants for research is key to providing solutions to the challenges faced by businesses, communities, industries, and the government. For example, here you see a project by Monash supporting smart manufacturing policies. It addressed challenges with regard to the disruptive nature of technological advances, identifying gaps in the policy framework of the APEC economies, and providing solutions and to strengthen ways of the smart manufacturing policies. So this is just one of the many grants and research that is conducted at Monash. Competitive scholarships are granted to graduate students who plan to embark on research to do with strategic development in the global community. Areas that we find that have been taken up is, for example, managing sustainable development in Asia or green market behavior. Now, to support research education within the school has world-class infrastructure. I will just take one of it and show you. This is the Geron Technology Lab. The Geron Technology Lab is an interdisciplinary, collaborative platform used to translate research into technological innovations for the older generation to use in their products and services. It is also a platform to raise awareness for the needs of the aging society in Malaysia. Now, when we engage with students, community, or industry, we ask this question: is our intention to produce students who are obedient citizens or passive consumers? Or is our intention to educate global citizens and to make them aware of the sustainable development? How can universities help in solving community issues or in addressing the challenges that businesses face? Are students and staff given the opportunity and the avenue to engage in such extracurricular? So, in 2018, we held our inaugural Responsibility Day. Now, this is focused on introducing the SDGs to first-year students and the importance and relevance of the framework to them, the business students. We view this platform as an effective way of beginning the process of integrating the SDGs into the psyche of the students at the commencement of their university studies. When we engage with community, we make sure to include the academics, the professional staff, and the students within the school. This was a joint initiative with the UNHCR, an NGO known as Fuji, and the Opening University for Refugees, where we had workshops. We coordinate 3 weeks of a bridging course, where we provide workshops and trainings to refugee students to be aware of skills needed to be a university student. Part of the process is also to identify refugee students who demonstrate the motivation and academic potential for further education. And as a resource, the academic institution have opportunities to empower and support them in various initiatives, including mentoring. Now, the schools aim to create meaningful impact in the way business is done in Asia can only be achieved if there is engagement between the school and leaders in the business community, industry, and government, like all of you. So a central feature of our industry symposia is to facilitate discussion between the academics, research, educators, and the experts in business community and the government, and to see how research and education can achieve sustainable and responsible management practices in the real world. So what you've seen is some of the initiatives done by the school. I would also just like to give you an overview of the direction of the campus as a result of the initiatives of our schools. Now, some questions come to mind when you look at a university as a whole. Is sustainability a core component of their policy? What are the efforts made by the university to reduce its carbon or environmental footprint? For instance, in Monash, the latest development of buildings and landscapes have to comply with the Building Sustainable Development policies. Now, I'd just like to highlight 2 of our campus initiatives, which I think is important in developing the progress towards sustainable development. The first one is the Change It campaign. This is a campaign that was initiated by Monash, Australia. It took Monash, Malaysia by storm. It is a 60-second powerful video footage of social, economic, environmental issues, challenging young people, especially academics, researchers, and students, to play an important role in changing what they do not like. Hence, if you don't like it, change it. The Quit Plastic project is an effort to reduce the environmental footprint in the campus. As of January 2019, we have pledged to stop usage of single plastics, including straws, bags, cutlery, water bottles. Each staff is given a reusable water bottle, a glass food container, metal straw, and metal chopsticks. So as you can see, universities play an important role in the future of sustainable development. However, creating a sustainable future is not just about creating green campuses or implementing recycling efforts. To close the loop and bridge the gap between businesses and future business leaders, case studies, and the involvement of students in industry-based projects to solve SDG-related issues is of utmost importance. Within the university, this can be facilitated by implementing more blended learning programs, creating more university partnerships with industry, with businesses, with the community, and by integrating SDGs into all disciplines at all levels. For the SDGs to have an impactful future, they have to be brought down to local realities. In particular, business students need to be able to internalize how issues relating to SDGs impact the business world. To avoid hitting a plateau, we need to change mindsets, behaviors, attitudes of future business leaders policymakers, researchers, educators, consumers. In this sense, education is an important human right with immense powerful to transform. On its foundation lies the cornerstones of democracy, freedom, and sustainable development. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Priya. Let's see if we have any Slido questions for you, right? Just give us a moment. Oh, we have. Can you see it, Priya?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a ranking system? Oh, great, this is a great question. But no, there isn't. There isn't. Now, universities are ranked according to their research, their publications. And the ranking system does not at the moment include SDGs. But I think it is an important element that should be a part of global ranking systems of universities and how education, research, and engagement reflects it. Yeah, but sadly, it's not yet. But I think they do look at it in different ways. Sustainable impact, creating impact. But the word sustainable development goals is not part of that ranking system. Yeah. Yeah, well, okay. So I'm not sure about, the metal straw causing death, but yeah, the campus might change its policy with this if, if safety is an issue, because it is an issue. Yeah. My working in large corporates, those research I mentioned, how they perform. Okay, Monash is working with a lot of industry, for example, in sustainable palm oil, that's one. They work with the manufacturers of plastics to look at more sustainable ways of achieving this. But measuring the SDGs and the impact of respective companies and how they perform is an area that is still new, and it is very much in the interest of the school and the university at large to look at measuring of the SDG impact, because that is an area that is quite abstract. I think a lot of conversations here have also been about measuring impact. How do we measure impact? So that is definitely in the works of the research being done, but I don't think there has been any outcome along these lines. But it is an important research area. Yes, I do think it should be embedded in early childhood level. I absolutely agree. In the simplest of ways, SDGs should be incorporated in early childhood education. But since I am part of the university, and I do believe that university students have come to universities with a certain mindset that's already there. And it's surprising to see sometimes how uninformed and unaware a lot of students are. But this is a way to really solve the problem and start it at very early educational level in the most simplest ways. It should start at early childhood level, I agree.
Okay, I think that's our last question. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. Coming up to speak is the founder and CEO of Colony, which is Colony is basically what they call a luxury co-working space. We have his profile in the program for you. Do read it up. And to talk to us about building workspaces for the future, it's none other than Tiah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I thought I'd start with a quick introduction about myself. I'm a kid from Penang. I grew up there, born there, raised there, and I've lived in KL only for like the past 10 years, right? So I first came to KL 10 years ago to study at A levels at Help University. Back then it was called Help Institute. Yeah, and subsequently went to London to do my degree. And when I came back, I've never actually had a full-time job ever in my life, right? Because when I came back, I kind of like, decided to start a company. Back then it was called Nafnang. It's like a blog ad network. And I managed to take like 75,000 ringgit from my dad, and we started this company, and my goal was to be able to make 2,000 ringgit a month, because that's how much I would have earned as a fresh grad, right? Fast forward 10 years later, that company did a bit better than expected. We ended up going for an IPO in Australia in 2015, and a year after that, I kind of left the company. Many reasons why I left, and but a big part of it was that I kind of lost my sense of purpose. Like the business was largely in advertising, and I found that people, I found I didn't have a purpose there. And the story behind that is, one day I was talking to this friend of mine who's an insurance agent, right? And I asked him, like, what is the purpose of what you do? How do you find meaning to your life, right? And he told me the story. He said, Tim, there was once I have a client who bought life insurance from me, and he died. Yeah, he literally died, like a few years later. And I saw some people get shocked. Yeah, so he died, and so he brought a check to his family after his passing, right? And when he gave the check to his family, the wife and the kids all literally cried, because there they were in a point of their lives where the breadwinner is gone, and they were still mourning, but they were still trying to figure out how to pay their bills, and this check would allow them to mourn in peace and find a footing, in the short to medium run. And then he told me, Tim, that's why I do what I do. Now, when I heard that, I was like, what do? I sell advertising, right? Like, nobody ever thanks me for like, hey, Tim, that was a damn good ad. Thank you. Hit me more with that ad. Hit me more, man. A few more times on YouTube. Never, right? So I left, and I started looking for something else to do, right? And I came across this thing called co-working spaces. And the first time I came across it was in Jakarta. And this friend of mine who's a VC, he brought me to his, back then the space was called EV Hive. And he said, Tim, check out this space. It's a space for freelancers and startups to build communities together and collaborate, and and this is the future of working. And I looked around, and I didn't really resonate with it, and my first thought of co-working was that it was fluffy. It was fluffy, right? Because every time, so everyone's modeling after WeWork, right? Everybody then at the time, like 2 years ago, was saying, oh, we're going to be, my friend was telling me about this race among co-working spaces to be the WeWork of Southeast Asia, which is quite funny, because as of the past 1 month, now everyone's trying to tell everyone else why they're not WeWork, right? But if you go to every space and you ask them what's different about you, they'll all tell you, oh, our community. Our community is different from our competitors. And the funny thing is that they're right. Their community is arguably better depending on who you ask. And I can't measure community. I can't measure, it's an intangible thing. It's like saying, my friends are better than yours. Like, how do you prove that? How do you prove me right, or how do you prove me wrong? I can't, right? So I didn't really resonate with this co-working thing. I kind of like let it slide. And this was after I left my other company, and I was kind of looking for something to do, right? Then in 2017, I was running around here. Does anyone recognize this place? Yeah, KLCC Park, right? Yeah, so in 2017, I was training for a Phuket marathon, a full marathon. First time in my life. I ran 42 km, and first time, and probably the last time in my life. I don't think I'll put myself under so much pain again. But back then, I was training for it, right? And I was running around KLCC Park as part of my morning run, and it was early morning on a weekday. And I happened to notice a lot of people coming out from the LRTs, from the car parks, and they're all walking to the offices. And the one thing I noticed was that everyone was sad, right? Nobody was skipping to work. Nobody was laughing. People were just looking at their phones, and they're just walking. Nobody was smiling and hardly talking to each other. And then it hit me. It hit me that that work, the experience of work, sucks. It's just terrible. The past 10 years of our life, we've seen so much changes to our lives. We now have like Facebook, WhatsApp, we communicate better. The way we buy things are better. Air travel's a lot cheaper. So, you know, we travel a lot more, we're exposed to things. We also expect service everywhere we go, right? If you go to a shop and you want to buy something, and the shop assistant doesn't immediately come to you, you just walk out and say, I'll buy somewhere else, right? We are so used to that service. But back at the workplace, back in the office, where we spend 9 to 5 at least, every Mondays to Fridays, we go from this place full of service and great food and all that, to this environment where you're meant to fend for yourself. You know, if you spill coffee on yourself, you take care of yourself. If you have issues at home, don't bring it to work, right? And office has largely been the same. You know, it's still largely cubicles, fluorescent lights, some sort of a pantry with an espresso machine, and things like that, right? So then I came up with, you know, realizing that the world has now evolved into a service-based economy. You know, I thought, okay, why is it that office hasn't? Why is it office hasn't changed, right? Why can't going to work or going to an office make you feel like how a hotel would? Why can't that, right? So then I kind of like imagined a workspace where an office where if you go in there, it feels like a hotel. You have a concierge that looks out for you. If you spill coffee on yourself, they'll buy you a new shirt. Literally, that really happens. Or you know, and it would just be a great place to work. It's not necessarily for startups or freelancers that just account for like 1% of the market. It was for the 99% of us who have normal jobs, right? So I embarked on this journey, and eventually we created Colony, right? So Colony started about 2 years ago. Today we have 5 locations around KL. We've done pretty well. We've raised quite a bit of money, like $7 million in total, from equity funders and landlords. And last year, a private equity fund bought into the company, so we've been growing a bit more. But let me show you how Colony looks like, right? And this is not 3D renderings. This is not like the future. This is now. This is where some 500-600 people come to work every day now, here in KL, right? This is our location in Eco City, which is right across the road from Mid Valley. This one's KL Central, right? This one is Mutiara Damansara. This one is the newest one in Jalan Yap Kwan Sing, calling it Star Boulevard. You can go to our website and check out. There are more photos on this, right? Now, what we're seeing, right, is this change isn't just affecting startups and freelancers. We're getting sizable companies. So, you know, the largest company in Colony is Kasem. So they have 150 people based in our space, right? And they use the space as a HQ. The second largest is a frozen food company from the 1960s. I think they started in 1966. You know, so if you ever think that, you know, oh, my company too old school, will never sign up for this kind of thing, right? You know, this company from 1966 did. Right? So they have 100 people with us. And of course, our third largest is actually Mami Double Decker. They have about actually 96 people in one of our colonies as well. Now, why do they do this, right? These companies, and increasingly in larger scales of companies, they're doing this because they recognize that in the future, our jobs will all change in 5 very important ways. The first is something we always hear about is the gig economy, right? Like the Uberization of everything. So where it used to be companies have like large workforces that did everything, now, there's a group of independent contractors that can work on their own time, on their own terms, and they can choose where they want to work, from home, from Starbucks, or from a co-working space, or for anything like that. The second is the decentralized workforce. So increasingly, we're seeing companies where they don't necessarily need everyone to be at one place at the same time. They can kind of work remotely, and in that way, it makes it easier because it's easier for them to attract and retain talent because they can allow people who live in, say, Ara Damansara to work in a location or a co-working space there instead of coming into the office in KLCC. Employee motivation is also a huge thing, and it's going to get more and more important. With the incoming of AI and everything, we're going to see necessarily lower skilled labor being potentially replaced by AI. But when it comes to very human kind of jobs, like middle to higher end skill jobs, there's going to be a lot more demand and a lot more competition for it. So companies now are finding it important not just to have offices for the sake of having offices, but they want to have nice, cool offices, and they want to shout about it. So, for example, does anyone know here that AirAsia has a cool office with a slide in it? Anyone? Oh, just a few people. Okay, well, AirAsia does. They have one near KLIA too, and they make it a point to shout very loud about it, about how cool their office is and everything. And we're seeing more and more companies do the same thing. The fourth thing is collaborative spaces. So a lot of our kind of work now depends not just on us as individuals, but on a lot of collaboration. So offices have changed, right? It's no more just cubicles and you work on your own. They require a lot more meeting rooms, a lot of spaces, like breakout spaces or this kind of things. And that's where co-working spaces or special solutions just for offices come in handy. And of course, the last is tech-enabling work. So almost everything we do now has tech in it. So today, somebody from, I think, Lazada Express came to deliver something to my house, and I think they were using some iPad thing to ask me to sign off that I received it. An hour later, the post-larger one came, and they were still using paper and pen, but, I think they'll get there sometime, but still, one way or another, a lot of our work is tech-enabling kind of work, right? And as jobs change, we will have to evolve too. Employees will have to change the way the offices look, the office experience. Instead of a cold kind of environment, they have to create an experience where people would want to come to work, right? And also for employees, right? We're going to have to. We will demand more. We will look for, when we look at spaces, when we look at workplaces, we look at where the offices are. So I found this piece of data online where 71% of people who apply for jobs would be willing to give up some other benefit for a better working environment. And that other benefit includes even accepting slightly lower pay just for a better working environment. So what does this mean for real estate, right? Something as simple as real estate. For the longest time, right, space or real estate or property has always been about selling space. If you come in and sell, they say, this is our space, this is our living room, this is our bedroom, it's all this kind of thing, right? And increasingly that's become, well, fairly commoditized. What this means, whether it's co-working or with hotels or anything like that, is that increasingly people will look at space not just as office space, measured in terms of square footage or anything, but they'll look at it from an aspect of what's the experience like? What is it like working in this place? What do I smell? What do I see when I come in? What kind of music is on? What kind of facilities? What kind of amenities? Does it make me happy or does it make me sad? What kind of experience does real estate give us, whether it's a home, it's an office, or anything like that? And this will change drastically. This will change drastically because anyone who's consistently focused on just selling space will be left behind. Just like any company, increasingly, that keeps office just looking at how it looked 10, 20 years ago, will increasingly find it harder and harder to find people to hire when the rest of the market has shifted to create the offices of the future that potentially feels like coming to work at a Majestic or a five-star hotel. So I want to end with this, right? 2 years ago, one of my friends, when I told them about the idea of this colony and my purpose of changing the experience of work, I asked him, I told him the whole pitch, and he asked me then, he said, okay, that sounds cool and everything, but what if everyone eventually just does the same thing and build their own offices that look like hotels? And my answer was, right, I hope that happens. Because if that happens 5 years from now, and if anyone comes into an office that looks just like this, and they just go, meh, this is what I see all the time anyway, then at least my colleagues and I will have successfully changed the experience of work. And at least then, I've done something else other than push ads in people's face with my life. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. Also, we have lots of questions here. Yeah. Okay, so let me start with the top one, right? Do you have any capacity to provide one-off pro bono space for initiatives you support? Yeah, actually the truth is that we do, you know. Okay, so the truth is that co-working spaces generally in KL, it's like, there's a huge oversupply. It's very competitive. So most people, except Colony, right, are willing to kind of give you space to do stuff. Like, you know, anything, any kind of stuff, right? If you need office space, they can give it to you very cheap. They can give it to you even in barter. You give me your service and I give you this or something like that. If you try hard enough, many of them will actually allow that. Colony, we don't do that, you know, because we don't have that much available space to give away like that. And, but we do give it for certain initiatives like we support, like we work quite a lot with Teach for Malaysia. So we give them space in our colony so that they can have a great working environment and, you know, save our education system, perhaps. The second question, how's Colony different, right? So every co-working space, right, the truth is that, and the radical honest truth is that everybody you go to will tell you that they're different in their own ways. But in reality, when you just look at the pictures of how every space looks, they all kind of look the same. They all look like WeWork, because WeWork started it, so everyone's just like a copy of WeWork, a better or worse copy of WeWork. And for Colony, we don't go down that WeWork angle. We're not so much community focused. We're very like hospitality focused. So if you look at our spaces, they look very different from a typical co-working space. A typical co-working space looks like a very nice like hipster cafe or something. Ours look more like hotels. We're not so much about communities. It's more about like hospitality and privacy, and, you know, having very, very personal service. So we're also a lot more expensive. So our transacted rates are something like 50% more than a typical co-working space in our area. Okay? And I think those are the only two questions. Are there?
Okay.
Okay?
Right. Thank you. How about a big hand for Timothy
thank you.
Tiah? Swiftly, ladies and gentlemen, do remember, our next speaker is our last for today. And right after that, I'll be inviting Daniel Krohn to sum up today and give you an encapsulation of what the takeaways are for today as we wrap up, okay? Now, for our next session, it's practical adoption of sustainability in organizations. To share that with us is the founder and chief executive officer of Thoughts in Gear. Please welcome Margie Ong, ladies and gentlemen.
By 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than biomass, and this includes all the vegetation and all the fishery. The time is now. By 2050, 95% of North Jakarta could be submerged. The risk is too great. Unilever's purpose-based businesses are growing at 70% more than the rest of the business. The opportunity is there. Ten of the biggest corporations in the world today make more money than 180 of the poorest countries in the world. The person is you. And this is where I want to pause for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have seen lots of amazing presentations. You have heard lots of reasons why sustainability. I hope you are convinced. And you are here because you represent your organization. Now, I'm just going to come down because I'm just a little bit too far away from you. So if you won't come forward, I'll come back. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can ask you, how many of you here today are concerned about sustainability? A show of hands. You can be honest. If you're not, you don't have to raise your hands. Okay, how many of you think that your organization is concerned about sustainability? Raise your hands. A few fewer hands. Keep them up there. How many of you have already embarked on the sustainability journey in your organization? Very good. For at least 1 year? 2 years? They're all going down. 3 years? Okay, I'll stop it at 4. 4 years, anyone? Okay, very good. There are a few stalwarts there. Well done. So, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of the presentation, and I'm here to, just before your last closing speech, wrap up your day, is to try and translate everything that you've heard today into action within your organization. You are here today to represent your organization, and just over lunch I had a very interesting conversation. It takes but one, or one plus a few people in your organization to actually make a difference. You can be that flag bearer. For those of you who didn't raise your hand that your organization is concerned, but that you are, you can be that flag bearer in your organization. And so today, because you are very important and you are here and you are our reach into your organization to adopt everything that you have heard today and be able to make that change with your company as your tool and your vehicle to make that change, this presentation is going to be a little bit like a choose your own adventure. So I'm going to ask you one of two options. You can pick the focus of the presentation today on what will spur your action. What here that I'm going to say will make you go back tomorrow or the day after, because it's a 2-day conference, to actually start something on the ground the minute you get back. And I've asked for permission, so I will be able to ask you, you will be able to ask me questions after this as well. So if you have any questions, a mic will go around for any questions that you might have. Option 1 of the presentation, we can either focus on how do you do this as a person within your organization, or we can focus on what others are doing in the world today. So please tell me by a show of hands, which one you think will help you take action within your organization. Those who would like to hear how you can do this in your organization, please raise your hands. And those of you who would like to hear what others are doing around the world, please raise your hands. It's a bit of an even mix. You guys are making this a little bit difficult. I'm gonna cover a bit of both, but I thought that there was a little bit more focus on the first one, so I'll spend maybe a little bit more time on that. So very quickly, jumping into how do you do this? So I'm just gonna run through 8 steps that we find very, very simple and very, very straightforward in terms of how you can actually go back and run this today. So number 1, if your entire organization is not as informed as you are, get some form, whether it is a YouTube video, whether it is someone coming in to talk to your organization, get the word out there. Get the word to your management, get the word to your people. Run a setup. There are 2 parts of a setup that you can do. 1, run a quick baseline of your organization. I can bet you every single one of your organization here today, you're doing something in your organization that can fall within the realm of sustainability. Pick up those already existing initiatives, highlight them to your organization, improve upon them, and start measuring and tracking them. Another thing to do for your setup is, of course, setting up the sustainability governance structure. So really making sure that there is the focus from management, that the indicators are being tracked, ideally within the management team. So make sure exec management and working group are up to speed, conduct a baseline, and set up your sustainability governance structure. Very quickly, the next couple of steps, within your strategy, you can create a 3-year strategy to align your vision, mission, targets, and indicators. These are nothing new. These are not new things. These are things that you can do today, tomorrow, day after, to actually get your organization started and moving on it. Determine your, okay, let me put a preface to this. In sustainability, as you jump in, and I'm sure a lot of you have, I'm going to ask another question. How many of you have published a sustainability report within your organization? A few, okay, a couple out there. So as you know, if you're a listed entity, you are required to publish at least a sustainability statement. You will hear terms. They are not difficult. Terms like material matters. Material matters simply mean issues that are important to your organization. That's all it means. So determine your material matters, what's important to you, and how you will actually engage with your stakeholders. Project plan your selected sustainability initiatives with owners and timeline. Very, very important. So very actionable things that you can actually be doing. I'm just going to run a quick video before I jump on to the next 4. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, there's a bit of a theme to the presentation now. It is really trying to highlight to the whole room here today that this is within your ability, that this is something that you can take and action. We have heard the reasons why. We have heard from the morning. We have heard of the risks that are involved. This is very much affecting every industry today. In the financial industry, insurance companies are finding it really hard right now to determine what's insurable and what's not. I mentioned the floods. There are currently basement spaces and homes that are becoming uninsurable to the industry right now. Financing. We heard this morning that there will be preferential rates for those of you that are seen to be adopting sustainability. Investors are very much, we heard one framework, which was the Future Fit framework. There are many more frameworks in terms of what our investors here are requiring. We do know that GRI is currently being adopted. Bursa is definitely encouraging us to follow that. On top of that, we've got investors like QAP and EPF who are now UNPRI signatories. So they have already started engaging their portfolio companies, if you are one of them, to actually have that conversation, to actually have initiatives, to be able to measure, to be able to track those initiatives as well. So very much in terms of within your organization, what you can start, just quickly moving forward with the other 4. So tracking and implementation, we talk about setting up your monitoring and evaluation process and indicators. within your organization. Those indicators can follow very many different global standards that we have today. Determine your progress review cycle and your forums as well. Where will you be talking about sustainability within your organization? Who will be at the table when you are discussing important business decisions with regards to your sustainability? Establish communication channels across the organization for consistent updates. Keep your workforce motivated, keep them informed, and keep them together with you as you go down this path. All the stats and information that you hear today, pass that along. Motivate your entire organization to come along with you. And very importantly, and it has been a focus today as well in terms of reporting. So reporting is currently a very big topic. It is not the entire purpose of your sustainability journey, but it is a very important microphone. And I think I'm talking to the right crowd here today in terms of knowing the image and knowing the message that your company is carrying to the world today. And if you can be an inspiration to the rest of the market, one of the avenues of you getting the word out is in terms of reporting. That also keeps us internally being able to track and tell those stories. That brings me to the, oh, that was very quick. That brings me to the final one, which is storytelling, in terms of really being able to portray that in case studies and in stories. And this lady will actually tell you why that's important much more better than I will.
It does work. I think the best methods are a few. So one is to tell stories that are character-driven, characters who we can identify with, who we care about, whose lives are really affected by these issues like climate change. Now, it's often hard to go from this very abstract issue, this very big macro issue of climate change, to this one individual story. And as a storyteller and a scientist, it's very hard for me to say that any one individual story can portray this complex issue or all of the science. It's impossible. But what it can do is to communicate one experience that is probably emblematic of many others. And in that way, I think taking this complex issue of climate change and making it human can then engage people who maybe they didn't care about climate change, but they care about people. We all.
So very quickly, we know that today it is really about the actions on the ground. You've got the message, you've heard everything that you've got a lot of information, a lot of stats in your hands. Bring it into your organization today. Your sustainability journey is unique. You can either take a full-fledged business transformation program and implement that internally, or you can choose one initiative that you've heard today, whether it is energy efficiency, whether it is gender equality, whether it is no human modern slavery. Pick an initiative today and start that internally. It can come from the grassroots as well. I'm getting the 1 minute mark, and I do want to save a little bit of time for questions, so I won't go through these in detail or run the video, but just a couple of names that you can Google along your way. Circular economy, it saved a company called Deso from bankruptcy, and this is a company that recreated itself completely by eliminating waste. I won't run the video. Chobani is another company you might have heard of, and they are extremely profitable from a very purpose-driven culture and a lot of inclusivity, and also they enable a lot of refugee communities around the world as well. And our very neighborhood name, IKEA, who will actually be producing more energy than they consume by 2020. So with those, I won't run that video either. I'm going to leave you with one quote, and that's by Yvon Chouinard, the CEO of Patagonia, and he says that profit happens when you do everything else right. And one of the things that all of us here need to know is that we're all at the beginning of the journey. You're facing challenges, so is everyone else in all the other organizations. Reach out, ask questions, discover more, but definitely be the champions within your organization. With that, I thank you, and I invite questions if there are any. Any questions from the floor? We can go to Slido, but if there are any questions from the floor, feel free to ask as well. If not, maybe allow me, I think I had the 1 minute mark. Allow me to ask one question then. Can you shout out an issue that you're having or a barrier that you're having within your organization in adopting sustainability today? Anybody? Sorry? Sorry, is there a mic she can get?
I'm going to...
Thank you.
Okay, we've got someone there. Who is it? Yeah. Here, catch.
Thanks, Raymond.
No worries. I'm coming. I didn't mean it that way.
Funding.
Sorry?
Funding.
Funding. Okay. So a lot of times when we step into an organization, the first thing I tell the team is if we get the CFO excited, we're set. Now, unfortunately, that's where the conversation starts a lot of times. And it either starts from, it's going to cost a lot of money, or it starts from compliance. What's the minimum I have to do to comply? Now, it's a little bit of a carrot and stick, obviously. When we step in, first thing we say is, yes, there are regulations in place, so compliance is a must. And if you need to start the conversation there, do so. It does build from there. We've got clients who've been with for 4 years, and that's exactly how the conversation starts. Now, in terms of funding, as we heard from Wipro earlier today, it really doesn't take a lot to get started. And maybe build a little bit of a business case in terms of how much money you can save as a start to actually get the conversation started. Thank you for that. Any others before I hand back to Raymond? If not...
There's a question on...
of course.
On Slido.
My company has been struggling to choose which SDGs to target and what scores to target. What is your advice? Okay. My advice is you have the best answer for that. So first of all, really examine what industry you're in. Examine what the purpose of your organization is. Is it to enable the people? Is it more towards environment? Is it more to social? Are you serving the bottom of the pyramid? And by the way, inclusive businesses, you have 4 billion reasons why you should get into inclusive business and target the bottom of the pyramid. And choose what, first of all, be very reflective of yourself and your company in terms of what you are doing. Then really look at the SDGs, not just the 17 goals, but the 179 targets and the 232 indicators, and really see what is aligned to your business. And there's no right or wrong, there's no popular SDG. Pick what works for you. What scores to target? That's very interesting. Now, locally, there are a couple that are being regulated. As we know, Bursa, for the top 200 companies, they are measuring FTSE for good. That gives you an actual number. Out of 5, you get a number. If you score above 2.4, you're on the index. So that gives you an actual number, and you don't have a choice. It's not an opt-in. You are being measured if you're the top 200. Another score, per se, that you could be tracking is actually all the indicators on things like GRI or the Future Fit framework, where you could actually measure those and actually be comparing that to the industry in terms of benchmarks, as well as against yourself as you progress. I realize I'm going way over time, so if there are there any other pressing questions? If not, I will hand back to Raymond.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Margie Ong, ladies and gentlemen. Now we've had a host of very eminent speakers share their thoughts with us today, and in closing, it's my pleasure to once again call on Daniel Krohn, Sustainable Brands US, for his closing remarks, and then we'll wrap up today's session. Even mine's gone. Mic number 1. use mine.
All right. All right. So just a few things to cover as far as takeaways, main key takeaways from things that I heard. Now, this is purely my perspective, so bear with me. You're all going to have your own. Brands, government, consumers, they have to work together. If they don't, nothing's going to change. If it's all brands, great, but the consumers have to come along. Government has to set the direction and the policy and the boundaries. We all have to work together, otherwise we're not going to address this problem. We need to shift our from linear thinking, which I think a lot of businesses and organizations continue to do, to whole systems thinking. Very similar to what Martin talked about with Future Fit. We have to use systems thinking, otherwise we will not address these problems. Sustainability is not just about risk mitigation, but it does create a multitude of opportunities to innovate. So if you're focusing on just addressing the risk to your business, you're not going to get very far. So you have to look at it as an opportunity too, and you have to use it to innovate, be creative, and adapt. Sustainability is being embedded in everything from finance and insurance. You know, KPMG, they talked about that aspect of it too, CEIMB, to green factories like WinPro was talking about, and supply chain. Sustainability has to be embedded in everything we do across all of our lines of business and all of our functions. I think I heard Martin say this earlier. Plastic is not the problem, it's our systems and infrastructure. Those are the problems. They're not set up correctly. And we heard that discussion in the CEO roundtable this morning, talking about marine debris, circular economy, plastic. We need to address the systems and the infrastructure. Purpose and profit are not mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand. So one of the great debates within sustainable brands is, can you have purpose and not sacrifice profit? The answer is yes. You can have purpose and not sacrifice profit. As a matter of fact, you can probably profit more if you have purpose. So these are just a few of the takeaways. I'm sure all of you have things that you've gathered today. And I hope that you have things that you'll be able to take back to your organizations and implement and start moving forward. I hope that you've made some great new connections today and opportunities to collaborate with each other and tackle these global challenges. With that being said, I will see you all in the morning. I'll be speaking again right away, so I'm sorry, but and I'll turn it over to Raymond.
And he's right. He's the first person you'll see tomorrow morning, and he's going to do an opening remarks as well in the morning. Now, this brings us to the close of day one, ladies and gentlemen, of Sustainable Brands 2019, Kuala Lumpur.